halfway on the call. I'm actually.
Are you camouflaging in that background?
I'm just trying to represent Nginx today. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, that's what happens when you wear green. that and some diet Coke really makes it stick out.
Yeah. Rolfo, I think you are on mute.
Thanks. I was asking if Lee have like a green background or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's a green screen back there, and I'm wearing a hoodie that I got for speaking at Nginx Conf. I don't know, 4 years ago or so, and it's all green. So it's a totally green hoodie. Yeah. Nice. So we've got I'm gonna try to be quiet a bit. Jubril, that's about as far as I've gotten with your name. I think that's it. That's all I can do. Nice. Oh, Himanshu. All right. Himanshu is the man without a last name, I've noticed, other than sunglasses.
Yes.
Hi, Himanshu, have you gotten a chance? So you haven't been able to be on this meeting before, right? Not the CI meeting?
No, sir, this is the first time joining it.
Good deal. Do you want to say hi to everybody and just tell them what your last name is and a little bit about yourself?
Okay. So, hi everyone, my name is Manju, and technically my last name is not applicable any or dot. I don't have a last name. Yeah, and I'm from India, and I just joined the community like last week. Yeah, for real, I don't have a last name. And I joined the community last week. I fixed a good first issue, and I aim to get involved with this community and support the cause.
Perfect. Very nice to meet you, Himanshu. You've got a couple of questions for you in the chat, I think, about how much of a pain in the butt I suspect the required last name field on certain forms is for you. What do you end up putting in there when they force you to fill it in and they don't take a white space? And Adina and Adia. Rudolfo, I'm going to put myself on mute just to...
Okay. So welcome everyone. If your name is not in the attendees list, please do it. And if you have a last name, please write it. The first topic for this meeting is a possible flaky test that was reported by Lee. This is on Docker Hub. Lee mentioned that he just re-kicked the test and it passed again. So I think maybe we can supervise that test in future releases in order to know if it is a flaky test or is a failing test. For those that didn't know or don't know what is a flaky test is a test that sometimes fails and sometimes pass. And a failing test is a test that it always failing. So I will take a look on this test these days and see what is happening. And if it is a failing test, I will submit a pull request to fix that.
Yep, near as I could tell, it's just a fluke. Like, it seemed to work the next time that we did a build. So,
Okay.
and that seems to happen with some regularity in GitHub workflows. That the runners will run into, some issue will occur and they'll fail fairly randomly. I mean, not like with like to a fairly high degree, actually, considering that how many times I've seen that. So
Okay.
But-
So we do we need to preserve this issue open, or
I think we close it out, actually.
okay?
Is Samir on the call? Nope. But looks like he had a good question here, so I'll just answer that in a comment.
Oh, see. Do you see my screen?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay, and let me stop and share it again. Maybe that fix the problem for Adina. Adina, you are able to see my screen?
Yeah, visible.
Okay,
Uh, Maybe it's a problem on my internet. I still see it black, but it's okay. Continue. It's okay.
okay. You can try to close and open the Zoom again. Maybe that fixes it. So it is a flaky test. Not important note. So the flaky tests are important to be fixed in the near future. But if no is so important, we can keep that as it is. So the second item for this agenda is the Meshery operator. We need to have tests for testing the connection, disconnection, upgrade, and provision other type of test. This topic is, or Yuma has more context about this. And we want to implement this test to be included in the CI test in the workflow of Meshery. So one question that I have, Abhishek, is like, how do you connect or disconnect the Meshery operator? I am not too familiar with that, so I don't know if you can show me a quick demo of that.
Okay, sure. I can share my screen.
Sure.
Alright. So I'll just check if so. I'm already running a Meshery Edge release.
Okay.
Oops. Yeah. So just go quickly and then. Oops. So when you log in,
Mm-hmm.
so there are two scenarios here. After you log in, basically operator gets installed automatically. But if you want to do it manually, you have an option in the settings pane. I just have to enable this. to install an operator. Uh,
Mm,
so the automatic installation kind of is a little bit more time consuming than if you go quickly and install it. So I can see that my cluster is also configured. I'm going to install it, and once I install it, I get all the status in here.
mm,
So all we need to validate is basically different scenarios. One of them is this, basically installing it manually. Other one is just being in the page and it just automatically installs it. Um and more scenarios similarly are listed on this issue, like the one you just displayed. So and basically the status is displayed in here after it gets installed. Uh, in the background under the hood, you can just go to Meshery namespace. So I'm in Meshery namespace currently. Um, if I list my pods, or let's say, yeah, pods is better. So if I list the number of pods, I have the broker pod and the operator pod currently. Ideally, we
mm-hmm.
have three pods: broker, operator, and mesh sync. So we'll need to account for all these three.
Okay. Mm. Sorry, can you repeat the part of how to deploy the Meshery operator?
Uh, yeah, so several ways. One of them is to go to settings and then click on this.
Ah, okay. If you switch that button
Yeah,
is done, right?
yeah, it's done.
Okay, so
So after you
I
click on it,
will.
uh,
Mm-hmm.
if you look at the cluster,
Oh, mm-hmm.
it it basically installs three. It initiates three pods. You just have to see if all the three pods are in place. Like that's one of the way you can confirm which that is installed. And
Okay,
if you look at the logs as well, you can see that it gets connected and then see the data. So yeah,
great,
but
great, great,
basically this is the way to install it.
great. So I will add a front end test for testing that those fields are active and the version of the Meshery operator.
Yeah,
Is that correct? Okay,
yeah. So
okay,
if you just click on it again, it just removes it from the cluster. So just
mm,
yeah, so it just removed all of it.
okay.
So this ultimately gets removed.
Do you consider that I should test that the pod was deleted also?
Sorry.
Do you consider to add a test that verifies the list of the pods and then deactivate the measure operator and then validate if there are no
Yeah,
pods anymore?
yeah. Basically, not just them, but all the scenarios that are listed in the issue. So let me just open up the issue.
Mhm.
Oops. Sorry.
I can send you in the Zoom chat.
Okay. So so basically, we've listed a couple of scenarios. Like for example, consider leaving the operator on, and user may wish to switch to a different cluster, or so that's a scenario. And like basically, a list of all the scenarios are here, and also added with time in the respective comments that follow. So, so basically, the initial step would be to just test the on off, like have a unit test to test the on off, and then cover like basically keep adding more scenarios to cover.
Yeah, so it's a good plan. I will start with switching between on and off, and then we can continue from that.
Sure.
Yeah, great, Kima. I will work on that this weekend.
All right, sounds good.
Let me assign me to myself this issue. Okay.
Yeah, sure, I can.
Okay. Do anyone have another comment about this issue? No? Okay. We can pass to the other item in the agenda list,
Oh, you know
and
what?
it's
I
for
actually just
releasing. Sorry.
yeah, sorry to interrupt, Rodolfo. Actually, maybe one that's somewhat relevant. We've spoken about it on this call in the past, and it is the notion that we would eventually, we have this build and release strategy document that talks about all about our release process and our workflows and stuff like that. And we'd also talked about this test strategy document that would outline high level, like our approach to unit testing, functional testing, end-to-end testing, what tools we might use, so why we would use them in what fashion, and that kind of a thing. And we've made it not very far at all in that one. And so all of you that are on the call are welcome to jump into that. There's a link in this the meeting minutes for sure to what is mostly an empty document on test strategy. But the subsequent doc after the test strategy, the strategy itself would just talk about like, oh, we'll use Cypress and we'll use GitHub Action. We'll use we'll do all these things. But then there needs to be a test plan like that specific, that like explicitly and somewhat granularly lists out like all these different tests to run whenever we're going to do a release. The goal being that we would automate most of them, but of the manual things that we would focus on in a spreadsheet, those are probably, end-to-end tests and things that us humans might run. There's been some work on that recently. And so I figured since we're talking about like end-to-end operator tests, there's a spreadsheet that has a few of those outlined. It might be the case that we would begin to institute, well, like a once every 3 month release party, like bug smashing sort of, release preparation party. If we can, I think we have to use that term just to attract people to come. And actually that type of a session, let me find the link, but that type of a session is really kind of nice for a lot of newcomers, in part because anyone can help. Anyone can just be a user and find bugs and complain. That's like half the point, is to find bugs. So I'll grab a link to that, in part because it has a few different tests defined for the operator. And here it is. Where are we? Are we just before we're talking about? Okay, I'll drop it in. Oh, sorry. Weird. Okay. So since I totally derailed the conversation, if you don't mind, maybe pulling up that spreadsheet just momentarily to orient everyone to it. It is, well, there's a couple of things about it. So first of all, this is a call for participation. This is a new spreadsheet that, is not overly intelligent. It's a list of tests to perform for any of us to perform to verify that certain, so like some of this, like eventually Cypress, if Rodolfo is creating new end-to-end tests using Cypress, well, it'll automate like line number 3, row number 3 there, which is there's a category of tests that are about lifecycle management, like the managing the life cycle of either Meshery or of service meshes. And the operator is a component that we, in this particular case, we want to focus on. Does the Meshery operator deploy into Kubernetes? And so I'll let you guys, everyone read it. But so there was a collection of, 4 or so maintainers this last weekend that was just walking through those, we when we made the V050 release, significant release, lots of new architectural components. A natural fallout of that is that there's going to be a few bugs. And so sort of a quality orientation for a little while and some point releases, to patch those bugs, really appropriate. So 2 things, or okay, wait, 3 more things to say. So this Meshery test plan, it is marked for V060. It's it's one of those documents you might find multiple copies of, or like in the sheet, how it has sheet 1 at the bottom. Maybe we would end up having a V060 and a V070, and it would be the point in time, are these tests passing? The tests will change and grow as more features come out. And some of the tests will just, the goal being, like I was saying before, a lot of the tests would be, we would just flag them as being automated by GitHub Actions, or automated by Cypress, or automated by the tool. If anyone can think of tests to run, which it wouldn't be hard at all, there's a ton that aren't written here, please add them in, and be aware that we probably will make a call for kind of a bug smashing party, or a bug hunting party at some point. Oh, speaking of, actually, I should say this. I know Navendu, one of the maintainers on Meshery CTL, he is calling for, and he's calling for a meeting on Saturday to really do this specifically to Meshery CTL. I expect he will probably use the Meshery CTL command tracker. There's a separate sheet that calls out like every single sub command and all that. And so if you're subscribed to the community calendar, you'll see it on the calendar. You're all welcome to come and find bugs.
Yeah, sounds good. So the link is posted here, and I will be waiting for that invitation on Saturday to be joined, if it is possible. Okay, so passing to the next item in the list, there is releasing Helm from Abhishek. I think there is a pull request open, right, Abhishek? I remember to see something like that.
Abhishek's on mute. As a refresher.
Yeli, go ahead.
You know what? I talk too much. Why don't you?
Yeah, sure. Okay. So, so I guess the CI is currently broken with respect to Helm, just the Helm release, Helm chart release, and Asuko is. I'm just pulling up the PR. So basically, Asuko is working on a custom GitHub action to sort of release these charts. And just a second, I'm just
refreshing. I'll toss in a couple of comments as well, which is to say that we have, well, actually, in some respects, we've offered people a lot, like too many choices for how they can install Meshery. Do it on Docker, do it in Kubernetes, do it using Helm, using Meshery CTL, get some brew, get some scoop, use a bash script, and whatever other way that we've been asked. So like almost, it's good, it's healthy. Eventually, as we grow, people have preferences, they have different systems they need to integrate into. They use Helm and only Helm, so they need that. And so fine, good. We've done that investment. One of the, every time that there's a new release of Meshery, the whole thing, there's a new release of Meshery CTL, a new brew package is released, a new scoop package is released. Great. Well, what isn't automatically released is a new Helm chart. It's only ever been manually released, and stuff changes, and there's no reason not to have it in the regular workflow for all of the build artifacts. Like, we have an existing chart, it should be built with anything that's been changed and published. And so there's Asuko had forked a general GitHub action for building Helm charts, a Helm chart releaser. The action itself supported the notion that you might want to publish your built chart to a different repo. Like if you're running the workflow in one repo, which we are, the source code for our Helm charts is stored in Meshery repo, the main repo. That's where the Helm chart source is stored. We publish the artifacts for Helm. I'm sorry, the artifacts for that chart, the built artifact for that chart, we publish it into a different repo. Why? Well, that's because we publish it into a different repo because when you're using the command Helm install such and such, well, Helm as a tool will reach out to the internet to some HTTP endpoint, to some repo. It doesn't have to be a GitHub repo, but just some Helm repo, a public facing HTTP endpoint, and grab the chart, retrieve it. Well, we already use the Meshery repo for docs.meshery.io. And granted, we could host the Helm chart, the artifacts in the same docs.meshery.io. At the time, it was a different setup. We chose not to. We're hosting the built Helm chart in the meshery.io GitHub repo. And so when a user uses Helm install, or when a user visits artifacthub.io, and you find the Helm entry, you find the Meshery entry, it will reference meshery.io. It'll, like, that's where the Helm chart is published, the built artifact. And so anyway, the GitHub action, it builds in one workflow, and then when it's done, it needs to publish to a different. And so actually Vishal is on the call. So Vishal, you've worked a bit on this particular action. Where are we at? Like, what's our current issue? Vishal, you might actually have to speak to this. Otherwise we might want to reassign it. Like, can you verbally speak to it? And so it's causing users enough pain. Like, there's enough people that use Helm as their install procedure that Abhishek, I think, if Asuko, we should poke him once more today to make sure he's actively iterating on it. And if not, Vishal, I get it. The chat is a challenge. It's enough of a critical issue that we'll probably need to reassign. So Abhishek, Rodolfo, if we give one more day to Asuko and to Vishal, and beyond that, we need to get it fixed and push it out. It's mostly about configuring the GitHub action for Helm chart releasing. The current issue, by the way, to answer my own question from Vishal, is that it's improperly configured. The GitHub action that runs, that it's called Helm chart releaser, the GitHub action is failing because it has a bad reference to the remote repo. And I don't think GitHub is retaining the logs long enough to actually see it here. Hence, in part, why the screenshots are on the PRs. But yeah, that's. Anybody else want to take this up?
Sorry. Yeah, just asking the same as Lee. Someone wants to take this issue, or if not, we can take it in a couple of days if there is not any other update. If not, I will send an Slack. Okay, Vishal said that he will try again. So it's good. If you have a question or if you need help, Vishal, please reach out us in Slack and we can help you. Great. So I will write that in the release note, in the meeting notes.
Yeah. And Jubril, while that's going on, do you want to, if you're going to talk today about the GitHub action that you're working on, do you want to drop that as an agenda item? And I guess, Jubril, I guess that's just a question. Like, do you want to speak over your GitHub action today?
Yeah, I do.
Cool.
Okay, so the next topic is one question that Samir asked me the other day of how to learn about CI in Meshery. I invite him to join us this meeting, but I think he's not here. But if anyone has the same concern about how to learn CI, I think that the best way to learn is by doing. So here is a couple of CI issues that are open. So if you want to take one of those, and if you need help, please reach us in the Meshery CI channel on Slack, and we can work together if you want. But yeah, I think that if you want to learn more about GitHub Actions or CI in general, I think you should do it in a pull request directly. So you can, or anybody can take any issue, any CI issue to start learning and ask for questions in Slack. Okay, so anyone have a comment or a question about CI in general, or how to start learning GitHub Actions or something like that?
I have a general comment actually about Git and the interactions with GitHub. That is mostly just to get everybody excited, I guess. That's that. If you've been paying attention in Meshery, Meshery will, or maybe this isn't as obvious yet. Some of you have been working on two new capabilities within Meshery. One is called patterns. The other one is called filters. Meshery will allow you to load service mesh patterns, which will be a YAML file that is a higher level construct than a Kubernetes YAML file. It will contain things like a descriptor for a canary rollout, or a descriptor for the fact you want to deploy Istio, you want to deploy an application, you want to run a performance test, and then you want to do a canary rollout based on the performance of it. Like that whole thing in one YAML file, and actually have it fairly concise. There's a new format that we're working with. It's called the open application model. Anyway, that's what patterns are about. You can load and store patterns in GitHub, and Meshery will connect to GitHub and pull in the pattern. Same thing for a filter. Filter is a different thing. It's not YAML. It's a small binary. We're working with WebAssembly, and the first couple that people are working on are in Rust. And there's a whole awesome filters repo out there in the layer 5 org. Anyway, point is that people are going to store their WebAssembly filters for Envoy in something like GitHub or some other Git-based repository, just like we are. And Meshery will connect to GitHub and pull them down. It'll also ongoing connect to GitHub if you authorize it to. And part of the one of the big points, the reason I'm telling you all this is because there's this term, there's this buzzword, GitOps. It's been around for a while. Well, it's been over a year. And it's not really a new concept. It is so much as it's just an evolution of what a lot of people have been doing in the past. And now it's got a nice term. And so we can all understand what we're meaning when we just say a quick term, GitOps. And part of that is Meshery is long before we even started the project. Like it's been a goal to be able to facilitate, well, for people to do visual design of a service mesh and have it integrate with GitOps. So if you're using Meshery, some of you are working on or have seen MeshMap, and whether it's MeshMap or not, that you can design it, the configuration that you desire for Meshery to manage of your service mesh. And if I were you, I would probably want to persist that design in a Git-based system in which I can do peer reviews and go through a PR process and maybe have, if I'm doing GitOps, where I'm doing a pipeline process for deploying my infrastructure as code, well, great, then Meshery should be folding into that. And so the beginnings of that are here. Meshery is interacting with GitHub and with the very point of interfacing with, intertying into GitOps. So if you want to learn about pipeline stuff, ask about that in the Slack, I guess. Just a random plug, Rodolfo.
No, it's okay. It's great to mention that. Does anyone have another comment? Okay, Himanshu say that he want to work on CI issue. So currently we have two CI issues, I think so. The first one is to not run the notify providers workflow every time. Sure, sure. After learning Himanshu. So this, I think this workflow is a very, or this issue is a very easy issue to solve because you only need to modify the frequency of when this workflow is triggered. So I think you can start working on this one. I will show you quickly how or where is this notify provided workflow. If you see in the actions tab, you will see a lot of workflows. The issue that is related to that is this one, notify remote providers. And if you go to Meshery, GitHub, workflows, and notify providers, here is a YAML. And at the top of this YAML configuration is the events when this workflow is triggered. In this case, it will be triggered on every push to master and on every tag created on GitHub. So we need to change that in order to only a tag release. And if Meshery server or Meshery UI changes are merged to master and not run it in every pull request or any other change to doc changes or Meshery CTL. So do you want to start working on this one, Himanshu? Okay, so I will reassign this one to you. If you have a question, please let me know. What is your username in GitHub? Okay. I don't know why he's here.
Yeah, and so Himanshu is brand new to the community, and so as such hasn't earned his stripes, so to speak, in terms of being invited to the GitHub org, the Layer 5 IO GitHub org. And so as such, GitHub's policy is that you can't assign somebody something unless they're part of the org. And so Himanshu, if you comment on this issue, then that unlocks the ability to assign it to you. So
Great. I will send this issue and also put that in here. It's already there. So I will put your name here. If you have questions, let us know on Meshery CI channel. Okay, so okay, this one.
I beat you to it. Yeah. All right, he's assigned. Mr. NA is assigned.
Great, it's assigned now. So if you have questions, Himanshu, please let us know. Let me know in the Meshery CI channel, and we can discuss there in order to have the opportunity of others to learn also reading our conversation and this issue. Does anyone have any other question about this one?
No, just that like a lot of the workflows that we trigger, the workflows will define the thing that they're interested in triggering, but a lot of them we used to like have a secondary like anti-trigger. Like sometimes we would trigger something and we couldn't find a more granular way of like saying not like, yes, we're interested in triggering this on push, but not when such and such is also the case. So this is good. I think this is good because when this is done and there's some refinement here, we may want to, for good measure, put some of those same filters, if you will, trigger filters on some of the other flows, because we're sort of over triggering a little bit today. And it's in general, it's not that big of an issue because it's because there are build minutes that we have left over at the end of the month. But for one of the repos, we're actually burning through the build minutes, which is actually exactly why we're working on that issue, because we're burning through the build minutes. We have like 15 minutes left. I wonder if Jubril, I know you want to take us through your GitHub action that you've been working on, which stands to be not only used for the intended purpose by which you're designing it for SMI conformance, but it also stands to be used for performance management. And actually it stands to be used generally as a base for end-to-end integration testing of what we were just talking about for all of Meshery. So Jubril, take it
Sure.
away. Yeah.
Hold on, let me share my screen. All right, so basically, I'm going to be giving a small update on the GitHub action I've been working on. So last time I was running into some problems, like trying to set the token properly. So now I'm actually at the stage where you can run the actual tests, which you can see right here. But there seems to be a bug in Meshery CTL where the conformance tests aren't being run properly. So there is an open issue right here that I'm supposed to be looking at to fix it. So once this is done, and I can confirm that the test will be run, I can start the process of making it into a proper action that other people can use. Because right now, I think it's best to just run each step sequentially, and then once I'm done, I could package it up as a full action. So yeah, that's basically it. If I run into any problems while trying to fix this, I'll be sure to disturb someone on Slack.
Nice. There's a couple of comments on the pull request that, so right now the approach that you're taking is to use, is that in order to test either both test Meshery functionality as well as actually perform a task. And what you're trying to do in this case is you're trying to perform a task of running a conformance test, that you know, part and parcel to that is the notion that you'll need to spin up Kubernetes, spin up Meshery, spin up a service mesh, and then invoke the SMI conformance test. And so I think you chose kind as a small Kubernetes distribution to run inside of your, or inside of the runner here. It's a Ubuntu runner. Say more, or take us to the rest if you would.
Oh yeah, let me pull this up. Yeah, okay, so basically, to perform the test, I have to spin up basically the environment like you would normally do if you are running this locally. So I start with an Ubuntu-based runner, and there's this environment variable you can set if you'd like to use Helm or Meshery CTL to install Meshery on the cluster. Then I get the prerequisites for kind, which is the distribution I'm using, since it's small and you can run it in Docker. Then install kubectl, and then this is the conditional statement. Like if you're using Helm as the deployment mode, this would run. So there's no need to waste CI time installing this if the user is not going to use it. Then using Meshery CTL start, I can install Meshery on the cluster, and then in the future, or when this is ready, users will be able to pass in their token. So I had to do some bash magic to actually get this working, because the other time there were problems with the JSON file not being properly sent over into the file. So over here, I configure kubectl to use oh wait, I'm not actually sure what this does, but I'm not too sure what this does, but
Oh yeah,
it's required.
So maybe I should explain it real quick. This is part of the point of you running through this. Abhishek, do you want to explain this? I don't think Abhishek is with us.
I
There he is.
I kind of lost in between, like basically. I re-joined.
Yeah. So Jubril's working through try to make a GitHub action to be able to run Meshery and Kubernetes in GitHub workflows. so that we can reuse that for testing and give it to different service mesh teams so that they can run SMP performance tests and SMI conformance tests. And so I had actually lost sight of the fact that he's actually making it, he's already incorporating for reusability by having if statements in there saying, well, he's creating this deployment mode, construct. And part of him doing this is that he's using kind at the moment. And whether it was kind or Minikube, the cube config doesn't necessarily have certificate data. And so he's, like much of the rest of us, unfamiliar with that command on line 89. I figured everyone would enjoy hearing someone else's voice other than mine explain what it means.
Yeah, like basically to flatten and minify the cube config. Do you want me to explain what it does?
Yes, please.
So basically, if you can open the cube config, do you have a sample cube config with you?
What?
Do you have a sample cube config file with you so that I can like point
No, I
out?
don't actually.
So basically, in a cube config, there will be different certificate data that will be present. So in case of Minikube and kind clusters, the certificate data is the fields are basically a reference to another file in the file system, which contains the certificate data. Yeah, so if you can zoom out a bit, yeah, basically like how you see here, the certificate data is a string in this case, but in case of Minikube or other clusters, it kind of is a reference to another file in the file system. So when you upload this file, Meshery doesn't have access to the other file, like the reference file in the host file system. So it fails to initialize the cluster. So what the below command does is basically it copies the content from the reference of the files and then put it in this particular config so that like basically it like you don't have any reference, so Meshery will be able to read all the config properly and then initialize it.
Oh, yeah. Thanks. That makes sense.
Cool.
Does anybody else want to repeat that back? Everybody else got that? Come on. You don't get this opportunity to learn stuff very often on calls. Most of you. Who wants to learn? Who doesn't know what we're talking about? And if you all do, I'm impressed.
Yeah, it was very useful. Personally, I didn't know what that commands do, so it's great to know the explanation and for what is that. So I think that was the last item in the list.
Oh, yeah.
Does
So-
anyone have
yeah,
something else?
Yeah, Jabril, do you mind sharing again? I can't wait for your GitHub action to be done so much that we have to talk about it more. So what's your current holdup?
This issue here.
Okay, so you're good through line 89, right? So then let's do something else. Let's do Meshery CTL perf. Like there's other things for us to begin to achieve. As a matter of fact, like let's look at like end-to-end tests. Like, hey, when we do a release, can you install Kuma? I don't know. I think so. I hope so. I keep my fingers crossed. But if you had that command in here, well, great. As a matter of fact, we don't actually have that command on Meshery CTL command line. Okay. Maybe we should be talking about designing out that Meshery CTL mesh command more. So there's, anyway, if you take a look at the test plan that we were just looking at in the spreadsheet, if you consider that the steps in that test plan, do you know what spreadsheet I'm talking about?
No, I don't.
Okay, it's linked in the meeting minutes, and you have a link to the meeting minutes, right?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, cool.
Should be able
You don't have to bring it up now, but I just want to make sure after the call you can go find it. And
Okay.
in the test plan, there are a few different tests around Meshery operator. Like, does the operator deploy? Does Meshery server talk to it when it does deploy? Does it delete it when it's told to be deleted? And I think we've worked through most of those bugs manually. Next time we make a code change, or something else changes, like, so my point is, like, there's another like example of from line 89 onward where we're able to like reuse line 89. I'm sorry, 1 through 89, and then beyond that we should be able to start to do some other tests, like run other commands, and so there's a test plan that's being formulated. If you would contemplate how this might form the basis of end-to-end tests.
Yeah, I definitely see. Since most of this is really just reusable, and I could just switch out all this for some other tests.
There, so Jubro, as you think about this too, because I know you want to, is in Meshery console, that Meshery console, the Meshery adapter for console, it has a suite of tests. They are written using this framework called BATS, Bash Automated Test Suite, something like that. And but it just reminds me of GI Joes and bats. That's all it reminds me of. Is which and it's good. One of the maintainers, Michael Gefeller, wrote it. Or not, he didn't write the framework. He wrote the script. He wrote the tests that get executed through the framework, and that gets executed through GitHub workflow. There's good test cases in there. I kind of think, the more that we dog food our own stuff, the better. And I don't remember who I was talking to and explaining what dog fooding your own thing is, or drinking your own champagne, but whatever the euphemism you want to use, the use of Meshery CTL instead of bats, well, that's nice. And that's better. Why? Well, it's in part because you just found a bug in Meshery CTL because you're using it to test out the rest of Meshery CTL and the rest of it. So, okay, good. So if you would, there's some other thoughts here as well, as like, hey, look, there's some great projects that were being built, that Meshery itself is being built around. The Kuma project where they're doing some of their own end-to-end tests. Linkerd, they have a great user experience around Linkerd CLI, and they have pre-flight checks that we're mimicking, and they have other, like every single one of these service mesh projects. Some of them do some really excellent open source engineering and CI pipelining and testing and things. We should go be inspired. I mean, we should think about that. If you would think about how we're using bats, think about how we might do something here, reflect on a few of the other approaches. And for my part, I'd be really curious about your perspective as to what we might do. Like this would weigh on the master test strategy for Meshery, which is to say we should lean into some actions, or we shouldn't. We should do some bats, or we shouldn't. So Abhishek dropped in a useful link to ZX.
It's kind of designed for just GitHub Actions, like a easier scripting for GitHub Actions.
Oh. Oh, okay.
Basically, write JavaScript and run it as a bash script.
Oh, this actually reminds me of just, let's see. It's like make, but more modern, and you can use other languages. Let's see. Hold on, I can't find it right now, but basically it would allow you to run commands using other languages as opposed to using bash. So it reminds me of Just. That's why I brought this up. Let's see if I can find it. But yeah, I'll look into bats and compare most of these things. So I'll give an update in Slack.
Oh, thanks. Nice. Well, thank you. Hey, thanks, Rodolfo. Thanks. It's a great meeting.
No, thanks to you all. Thanks for attending. See you in 2 weeks at the same hour for this CI meeting. Goodbye,
Yeah,
everyone.
bye.
I
Bye, everyone.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye bye.
Yeah, bye, everyone.